We're standing here in Echo Heights. There's 54 acres of second growth forest, which is getting more beautiful every day. And we've had a recent, very successful story here in Echo Heights. So successive councils have looked at this piece of municipally owned property for some form of development, and of course some areas that couldn't be developed to be preserved. The original plan was for a development that was 60% of the property, and when that came out, there was a large element of our citizens that really did not believe that development was appropriate for this land. They've walked the trails, they've seen the wildlife, they see the suburban or urban setting around them, and felt there was huge value in preserving this as a park. And I really agree with that. I think there is huge value, and this forest and these trails are just going to get more beautiful as the years pass. I mean, 3 decades from now, it'll be even more fantastic to walk through here. So we had a real this was a real sore point in the community, especially in Chemainus, but even beyond Chemainus, people were concerned, and there were opinions on both sides. There is land here that some people felt that we could get a monetary gain from, and that monetary gain could be used for capital projects, which we have many of in North Cowichan. On the other side, a very strong, purposeful group that felt that no development was appropriate on this 54 acres. So that not a confrontation, but those two different sides have been opposed for the last 8 years, and we have not had happiness on either side. We haven't had a solution that both sides could agree to. Well, the current council went so far as to pass 2 readings of a bylaw that would have developed 20% of this 54 acres and left 80% for preservation. That was really heavily opposed by those people who see Echo Heights as a forest that should be preserved. Really, at the critical deciding point, I presented to council an option which had 91% preservation and 9% of the most disturbed area adjacent to existing houses to be developed. With the idea being that 9% was the easiest to develop, the least infrastructure, and therefore the most profitable in terms of lot sales. And yet we could preserve 91%, the least disturbed area with most of the trails. We could preserve that forever as a dedicated parkland. So I brought forward a proposal that included this parkland dedication, which takes a supermajority of council to vote in favor. And honestly, I had several councillors say, you know, if you could bring those who are in favor of preservation on side, we could support this 91-9 proposal. And so I went to the Chemainus Residents Association, I went to the Chemainus Chamber of Commerce and their business improvement area, and talked to them about my proposal for 91-9. Fortunately, thankfully, we got agreement on all sides. Not everybody was completely happy, but most really loved the compromise. They loved the solution because we were able to preserve most of it, and yet we were able to allocate some of it, a small portion of it, to provide capital funding for projects within North Cowichan. So at the end of the day, a great relief. We had people from all sides signing on board, and what was a really huge ongoing concern in our community that people had spent literally hours and hours and hours of their life worrying about and being concerned about and coming to council to express their frustration about the plan. We were able to resolve that, and that bylaw has now passed, and we can move beyond that commitment to park dedication into talking about a conservation plan for the dedicated parkland. We can talk about plans to control invasive species. We can talk about some reforestation, because some of the disturbed areas, blackberry has taken over. We can remove the invasive species, plant native tree species, and bring back even more of the forest. And I personally believe that the community 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now will think this is the best decision, the most logical decision that ever could have been made. You know, during the discussion of the future of Echo Heights, we had a number of different groups make presentations or express their concerns. And one of the most important was the Penelakut tribe. This area has been a traditional spot for them to gather food for medicines, or plants for medicines, and they're also concerned about the wildlife that is here. And they made a special effort to ask us not to develop Echo Heights. And informally, after we made the decision to commit to the 91% preservation, they did thank me for the solution, because they felt it was the best that could be attained under the circumstances. So it recognized both sides of the issue. It recognized those who wanted to preserve as much as possible, and those who felt that we should be taking a certain amount of the land to provide capital for our capital projects. So this will continue to be a source of plant medicine for the Penelakut, and we expect that in the future they, along with all our residents, will be using the trails, and very comfortable to see that this has been preserved. There will be people out there who will express the idea that we should develop all this into lots, and there will be a great economic benefit to do that. But that's really misleading. We actually have a lot of service lots that are available and ready to go. When the economic conditions are right, builders will build houses on those lots. But the value of those lots is greater when we preserve green space to go with it. And for all the residents in Chemainus, having a place to come and walk on different trails of this size is of great value. And that makes their homes and their lots inherently valuable. So in terms of real economic benefit, actually a forest park in your community has a real economic benefit. It's one of those things that draws people to your community. If we were to pave every park, we would have lost so much, and the value of lots in our community would be very low. So there's a real benefit to preserving a park space, and I think for all the future generations in Chemainus and beyond, because people will come from all over North Cowichan to enjoy this park. This is a really good thing that benefits us all, even in an economic sense.